Part 150. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1494. When this huge palm stretched out towards them, Jia Yan was also extremely shocked, looking at the sudden appearance. In his eyes, this was just an 11 or 12-year-old child. It's just a child who is magnified countless times compared to the people on Earth. It's scary. Such a huge child can actually wear clothes. What kind of world is this? Jia Yan simply could not imagine that there were such huge and terrifying creatures in this world. They even seemed to be civilized because their clothes were not inferior to those of the forest humans around him. The huge child was whipped up with a slap. Ah! Several ape creatures suddenly screamed, and then were swept away by his huge slap. Can the wind sweep me so hard that I can't stand still? Jia Yan flew backwards under the sweep of this huge slap. If he hadn't been able to fly, he would have been swept into a tree under such tremendous force. In this world, everything is weakened, and Jia Long is the same. His five senses are not very sensitive, so when the huge creature came around, he didn't notice it. Fortunately, he was not directly hit by the slap. The group of ape creatures were originally preparing to attack Jia Yan together, but under this slap, each of them was comparable in strength to Jia Yan, and they were completely unable to resist, and all of them died or were seriously injured. What a terrifying power, and it can be seen that this huge creature doesn't use much force at all. When Jia Yan saw this, he felt bad. Because for him, seeing those ape-like creatures is already a very scary thing, but now he actually sees a race that may be more terrifying than ape creatures or this forest human race. This makes him that Jia Yan had a stronger sense of fear of this world. That huge creature was a giant that looked like a child. After he slapped the palm, he swept towards the place where the apes and humans were fighting on the other side again. Stop! At this moment, the faces of the great elder and the ape leader who were fighting with him changed wildly. They used their speed one after another and suddenly arrived in front of the huge palm. Both of them used their strongest strength to swipe down the slapped palms. Puff! Puff! The attack power of the two is naturally very good. The huge palms that were slapped were actually completely blocked by the attacks of these two strong men in mid-air. The child felt a huge pain in his palm and quickly retracted his hand. The speed of this retraction may be average for humans, but when it is enlarged to such a large body, the speed is unknown. It hurts. The child shouted a language of this world that Jia Yan could understand. Your Majesty the giant, please stop. I wonder why you are hindering our war. This giant friend, we are racially related. I hope you will stop attacking us. The ape creature looked cold, while the great elder seemed to feel a little at peace with the children of the giant family. After all, with that slap just now, the child didn't touch anyone from the forest tribe at all. The great elder even wondered whether the human children of the giant clan were helping the forest humans. Except for the huge difference in size, the two sides are completely the same in other places. Humph, you little guys actually hurt me. How could we, the giant family, retreat like this? I'm going to tear your family apart. The kid had a runny nose, and seemed unhappy about being injured a little bit by the two superpowers. He looked around angrily. Soon he seemed to see something, and then trotted over. Of course, it was a trot for them, but for the forest tribesmen and the ape tribesmen who were fighting on the tree trunks, it was like a big mountain, moving quickly. Not long after, he saw that he was thousands of kilometers away, oh, no, just 1 or 2 steps away from the child, and he pulled up a small tree growing on the ground. But the small tree was to him. To Jia Yan and the others on the trunk, the small tree could allow them to live in the tree hole. It was as huge as the sky. The child's strength was unknown. Not long after, he suddenly pulled out the tree trunk with a strong force. Oh my God! Jia Long watched this scene from a distance, his expression changed drastically. He could not imagine at all how powerful this giant-like child was. But the next moment, his heart felt even more shocking. Because the childlike giant, carrying the huge tree trunk, rushed towards them. "If you dare to cause me pain, I will destroy your nest. He's crazy. This kid from the giant family is crazy. Let's go quickly. Don't these children of the giant family know that this is the great place of our forest humans? Don't they generally protect us? Why is this?" A group of forest tribesmen are completely confused about what this child is doing, but now it's meaningless if they don't understand. Because the child has already attacked, it is almost impossible for the giants to stop after launching such an attack. Jia Yan's heart skipped a beat when he saw this astonishing momentum. It's like a moving planet crashing into it. "Get away from this tree trunk quickly." Jia Yan quickly flapped his wings and stood up. It's not that he doesn't want to fight again, it's that he simply can't defeat the coming giant children. So he suddenly ran away. The other forest humans and the ape clan also did the same. They all ran away frantically and frightened. For the natives of this world, the sight of a giant is always troublesome. The giants are almost at the top of the food chain in this world. Although there are differences in strength among them, and the child of the giant in front of him should not be strong, the giants are the giants, even if it is just one. A child without much strength can easily destroy an ethnic group. Boom! The tree trunk in the hand of the giant child directly hit the tree trunk where the forest people and the strong apes were fighting. An earth-shattering explosion, coupled with an extremely violent energy explosion, hit everyone's hearts. Then on the tree trunk, the forest tribe humans who had no time to escape, as well as the strong ape tribe people who were fighting with the forest tribe humans, fell uncontrollably one by one like dumplings up and down the trunk. Even the great elder and the leader of the ape clan were shaken by the shaking tree trunk. Fortunately, they were relatively strong and did not fall to the ground. "Asshole, you are a member of my tribe." The leader of the ape clan was surprised to find that among the most dropped creatures, the strongest ones from his ape clan were the most numerous, and he couldn't help but get angry. "I, a human, have also lost a lot. This child of the giant clan deserves to die." The great elder's expression suddenly changed. There was no agreement between the two, but they completely understood each other at this moment. They stopped fighting and charged towards the place where the child was. To them, this child of the giant family is a complete disruptor, especially when both parties believe that they have a certain backup. This kind of disruption is even more annoying. Of course, the great elder didn't know at this time that the ape clan's backup force was probably more powerful than he imagined. Die, die, die. The child of the giant tribe was like a moving star, striking one after another on the tree trunk where the two tribes were. The strong men in the confrontation fell to the ground one by one. Some of them were still alive and fell to death. If it were Jia Yan, without flying skills, he might fall to death. After all, in this world, he is not as powerful as before. It's terrifying. It can be seen that this giant child's body, let alone Deo, doesn't even have any sense of cultivation. How can he cause such huge damage with just one or two blows so casually? It can be seen that in this world, as long as something is huge, it will definitely be more powerful, but something powerful will inevitably be huge. Jia Yan flew up and watched the child's actions from a distance above the tree crown. But just when Jia Yan was watching whether the child had the ability to completely knock down the giant tree they were fighting on, behind the child, suddenly there was a larger figure slowly approaching. "Aren't you a child of the Anton family? Why are you making trouble here?" Behind him was a stout-looking middle-aged man. When he saw the child holding a stick-like thing and beating it, he pinched the stick behind him helplessly. Ah! The child is extremely powerful, but under the pinching and pulling of this middle-aged man, he was unable to move at all. It can be seen how terrifying the other huge figure coming is. "Hey, Uncle Ted, I'm playing in the forest, and there are two guys here who even dare to hurt my fingers. I'm going to kill them." The child was startled by the person coming from behind and quickly dropped the stick in his hand, as if he was afraid that he would tell his parents. "You must have sneaked into the mountains to play, right? I've told you several times, don't go into the mountains alone. Although there is no danger here, those small races also have one or two strong people, like those who stabbed you just now must be strong men of their own race. Come here, uncle, see if I can catch a few for you to play with." The stout giant named Tete came to the child. And just as he arrived, the ape creature next to the great elder rushed out with great joy as if he had seen some new continent. "Master Tet, we have finally waited for you, haha, these forest humans are here now, please help us destroy them." "Yeah, okay, as long as you remember, tell me where in this forest can you find the giant strawberries you mentioned? My children will be waiting to eat them." The supergiant man was talking to a creature that was so small that he could only raise his head to communicate with him, which was countless times worse than him. What? This ape clan actually made a deal with the giant clan. On the side of the ape creature, the great elder seemed to have received some major hammer blow, and his face turned pale instantly. "Quick, everyone in the tribe, listen to my order and run away as far as you can." At this moment, even the great elder did not dare to have any more support. He immediately ordered the surviving tribesmen to escape quickly with an angry voice. What, the great elder doesn't dare to have any thoughts of victory against this giant clan? Is this giant really so powerful? Jia Yan was stunned for a moment. But next, he knew why. It turned out that the giant had untied an ancient metal axe from his back. This axe is so big that in Jia Yan's opinion, it can split the moon in half with one strike. You apes and monkeys should hide away on your own. If you can't hide away, don't blame me for killing you by mistake. The huge man of the giant clan suddenly raised the axe in his hand, and then brought the axe down. Howl! The sound was like a stormy sea, and before the axe fell, it was already roaring like a tsunami. For this kind of movement, Jia Yan looked dumbfounded, while all the ape creatures and forest humans who had never seen the giants take action were completely in disbelief. Run, run, run. At this moment, the great elder desperately used all his strength, and then blocked the falling giant axe. His speed was considered fast. After jumping up, he came to the sharp point of the giant axe, and then an extremely powerful force that was very consistent with the principle of Tao erupted from his body. Compared with that huge giant, the great elder must have a much better understanding of Tao. But so what? There are no absolutes in this universe. Even though the great elder's understanding of Tao far surpassed that of the giant man who struck with the axe, his strength was completely unable to compete with this giant clan. Just like a mantis acting as a chariot, fireflies compete with the bright moon. Even if his Tao understanding is not as great as his, due to the difference in body size, the strength of both sides is still one-sided. Puff! The great elder was instantly hit by the axe blade and hit the depths of the distant woods. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. And the giant axe continued to fall. At the same moment, a group of forest humans were running away like crazy. Inside were the bald man that Jia Yan knew, Wu Baile, Lu Ji, and other forest tribesmen he knew, all flying around. When Jia Yan saw the extremely astonishing power in the sky, after he chopped off the great elders with an axe, his expression suddenly changed, and then he shot away into the distance without any hesitation. If he stayed here, he might be regarded as the next target of attack by the giant. Although he didn't know whether the giant had the ability to attack the creatures in the sky, and he even had the talent of subspace. But don't be afraid of 10,000 things, just be afraid of the unexpected. So Jia Yan also escaped. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1495. At this moment, the entire forest human race fell apart and fled in an instant. And while they were still escaping, the giant's axe finally fell on the tree where the two sides had previously fought. Boom! The entire giant tree swayed suddenly as if it had been hit by some powerful force. The huge trees are like the homes of the forest humans, with their home tree holes and children inside. Parents who are reluctant to escape rush home and pick up their children before running away. The remaining ones, whether they were from the ape family or the forest human family, all rushed under the trees. Master Tete, kill them all. The leader of the ape clan seemed to have become extremely bloodthirsty at this moment. Because when he came over, he said that today would definitely be the occasion of the destruction of the forest human race. Now he saw that all the forest humans were running away like crazy, without any backhand power. Even the man with him, the great elder of the forest tribe, who was fighting a draw, looked like this. He was extremely excited and shouted at the giant man next to him as if he was afraid that any of the forest tribe people would escape. But what he said was wrong. The giant named Tet suddenly stopped attacking and turned his attention to the leader of the ape clan. There was a hint of hidden anger in his eyes. Are you ordering me? Ordering a giant man, huh? When the giant man glared at him, the leader of the ape clan suddenly became startled, and then quickly waved his hands in shock. How dare I? I don't dare. You can do whatever you want. Anyway, the forest tribe has fallen apart now. It doesn't matter whether they are killed or not. Humph, it's good to know. Anyway, I helped you deal with this tribe. Now it's time to tell me the news you want. Okay, I'll go with you now. The fighting and fluctuations here instantly spread throughout most of the forest, but none of the surrounding races dared to come and test it. You must know that he is a giant. Although on the surface, the giant race and the forest human race are similar races, their sizes are too different, and the two sides have slowly turned into a superior race and an extremely small race. Just like the giant's Tet, he is actually just an ordinary farmer among the giants, but his strength is the absolute strongest in this forest. Unless he is a farmer like him, several giant men clashed with him, and he had no opponent in the woods. In this forest, he is like a master. Which race he wants to kill is almost a matter of words. Of course, for the giants, there are some things that they don't need to do, and they won't do them, because this kind of thing is thankless to them. Killing such a small race is not enough to eat, and even it is possible to encounter one or two strong people. Although it is difficult to say whether they will die or be seriously injured, a little injury will be in vain, right? If they have that time, as farmers, they might as well go find more large fruits in the forest or something else. And this time, it was also because the leader of the ape clan promised to take him to find a good fruit that was rare in the forest that he would help. Otherwise, he would definitely not care about a small race like theirs. Jia Yan flies in the sky. What on earth was that huge human race just now? It was too scary. I have no idea what kind of world this world will be like. There are actually such a huge race. That race of giants is as huge as the moon. Thinking of the giant's shocking power and huge size, Jia Yan felt horrified. For Jia Yan, such a terrifying giant creature was something he had never heard of before, let alone seeing it. So, what kind of world is this world? Jia Yan thought he had a little understanding of this place before, but after seeing this huge giant race, he became confused again. In the face of such a terrifying life, even if Jia Yan could feel that there was no other power in his body, not to mention the power of Tao, he still only relied on the power of his own body to directly create the forest man. The destruction of the clan. This was like a wake-up call for Jia Yan, making him feel that even if he mastered the power of Tao, he would not be able to do any exaggerated harm to the truly powerful races in this world. No, I shouldn't be limited to this forest anymore. I just tried to see if I could return to the previous space area, but I found that it didn't work. Jia Yan flew all the way. The more he flew, the more he felt the need to fly out of this so-called Tianhao forest. Because he didn't want to leave before and wanted to stay in the place where he appeared to see if there was a way to go back. But now it seems that not only cannot this method completely fall into the Zihao forest, but it may even be put into it. Outside Zihao forest. This made Jia Yan feel completely excited and was born. Because the strange giant clan appeared just now, he felt that this world might be more interesting than he thought, and there might even be more terrifying and powerful beings. Even though Jia Yan is still very weak, if a creature far more powerful than him comes out and attacks it, it will definitely be destroyed physically and mentally, but Jia Yan seems to have been ignited with curiosity. He was not a creature that was too afraid of death, and even at this moment, curiosity completely overwhelmed his fear. What kind of race is that huge race of giants? Since this race of giants exists, how do other races survive? To Jia Yan, everything is like a puzzle, completely incomprehensible. No. All of this is a bit weird. Compared to the outside world, there is a higher level of power, Tao. There are also races that are much more powerful than the outside world, existing in this world. In addition, there are also races that the outside world cannot imagine, and it is even impossible for anyone to believe that. There exists a race as huge as the stars. In this world, everything is vaguely better than the outside world. Could it be that this is a higher dimensional place than the ordinary universe outside? While Jia Yan was flying, this thought came up in great astonishment. If this thought was true, then to him, it would be like a truly shocking fact, something that could make Jia Yan almost speechless in surprise. However, this kind of question is meaningless for Jia Yan to discuss, because no one can answer it for him. But in his mind, he already regarded this world as a more powerful world than the outside universe. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain many things. And there is actually nothing wrong with thinking this way. Especially when Jia Yan flew for a while and finally arrived at the edge of the so-called Zihao forest. He actually saw a cluster of super huge houses. Yes, it's a huge house. The size of this house, each room, could probably fit into half the earth. Is this where those giants live? It's so big and scary. Although the house was relatively simple, for Jia Yan, it was as if he had seen a miracle, and he was extremely shocked. And for Jia Yan, this was the first time he saw another race besides forest humans that had human appearance and certain technological capabilities. Of course, the strength of this technology is not as powerful as imagined, it just has a certain primitive production capability. Creak. Suddenly, the door of one of the huge houses opened. A human child, who looked as big as the planet, walked outside. Hey, isn't this the kid just now? He actually got here so quickly. I've been flying, but he's not as fast as me. Jia Yan was stunned. He was relatively confident in his flying speed. Although it was delayed a little and he was not flying at full speed, his speed was not too busy. In this way, it is not as fast as a child from the giant tribe. The astonishing gap caused by the huge body is really too big. It seems that they still don't have any Tao or other cultivation methods. If there is any. The thought of such a terrifying race being able to practice or possess fighting skills made Jia Yan feel deeply frightened when he thought about that kind of scene. Fortunately, he hasn't seen any giants who can cultivate yet. He doesn't know if he will see them in the future. Anyway, he couldn't imagine what kind of strength the giants would achieve after practicing, which could easily kill strong men like the Great Elder by relying only on their physical body and size. And does this giant race have any natural enemies in the outside world, or is there any life form that is more powerful than them? If there is, then this world will be more interesting. Jia Long looked at the giant child from a distance and saw him playing in a house like a village. Just now, this child saw the battle between the two races and took action directly. It was the same as when he saw two seemingly unintelligent creatures on the ground and went to tease them away, right? And as the strongest people in this forest, they certainly don't think there is anything wrong with disrupting the battles of other races. I have the advantage of being able to fly. If I go over there, I guess they won't be able to find me. After all, I don't have brainwave power or tau power. Especially this child, he probably doesn't have such a strong sense of crisis. After Jia Yan thought for a while, he flew down directly. Being close to the huge child's body, even Jia Yan became a little nervous. You must know that as a being who has reached the middle level of a star, he has not felt this way for a long time, but unfortunately, now he has a feeling of panic. It has to be said that this is caused by the world being too powerful. Puff. Fortunately, the child didn't notice anything, causing Jia Yan to fall directly on top of him. Jia Yan is now 5 kilometers away, but falling on this child is still like a real mosquito from the outside world falling on a teenage Earthling child. But of course Jia Yan is sure that this will not be some kind of Earth, because here, every race is extremely powerful. Even a random insect in the grass will have a power comparable to Jia Yan, or not even close, but almost the same. Haha, those two races just now were really interesting, but Uncle Ted broke them up directly, otherwise I could play for a while longer. Do you want to play with another race tomorrow? But as soon as I get close, those races always someone would come up to me and tell me that they had negotiated a covenant with my family, so I couldn't play at all. It was really boring. This naughty kid still wants to find a new race to play with, or in other words, this play is not an ordinary play at all. Maybe it's all life-threatening. It is estimated that this child has also developed the concept that killing other races is not considered killing life at all, resulting in him not having much sense of identity with the senses of life. It's time to eat. Alas, your father and your Uncle Ted haven't come back. I don't know if we can find food today. If we can't find it in Chiyuan, our family will really have to go to the city to find some. It's hard work. Suddenly, a giant woman walked out of the room. Except that she was magnified many times, her dress and appearance were just like that of an ancient woman on earth. However, Jia Yan did not pay attention to her appearance, but at this moment, because of the woman's words, a storm broke out. What? There is actually a city. The woman said that if there is no food, she has to go to the city to find a job. Does that mean that giants like them already have a city? Jia Yan could hardly imagine what it would be like if such a huge giant gathered in hundreds or even tens of thousands and turned into a city. You must know that the size of each giant is really equivalent to a planet thousands of kilometers across. When they built a city again, it felt like it's like a group of planets, but they can move. They come together and create a city where the planets are together. How big is that city? And how that should work? What is the foundation that supports such a city? The more Jia Yan thought about it, the more horrified he became, and the world became more and more shocking. If in this world, even this kind of giant family is an ordinary race, then this world will be really terrible. It turns out that I thought that the Great Elder might be one of the top strong men in this world. 1. It seems now that he is just the strongest man of a certain race in a small forest, and he cannot even defeat an ordinary giant race, let alone a possible true powerhouse. Jia Yan kept crawling on top of the little boy, listening to the woman's conversation with him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1496. However, these two people must have poor vision. After chatting, they only talked about some fruits in the forest or other trivial matters. They did not talk about more issues about the worldview at all. They don't have any useful information anymore, let me go. Jia Yan just flapped his wings and wanted to fly. But at this moment, he saw the child's skin in front of him. Suddenly, Jia Yan suddenly felt a desire in his heart. That's when he suddenly remembered that he was actually a mosquito, and mosquitoes can suck blood. In the past, Jia Yan didn't suck blood because he didn't have a suitable partner, and his previous growth didn't require him to suck blood anymore. But it is different now. He does not seem to be that great in this world, and his status is not much different than that of a little mosquito on the other side of the earth. In this case, if he seeks powerful means, then this blood-sucking talent is a relatively good choice. After all, Jia Yan knows that his true identity is an evolved beast. The ability of an evolved beast is to quickly swallow other energy, thereby efficiently improving his strength. And such an ability is a perfect match for his blood-sucking talent. In the previous universe, he did not show this energy because he could not find a good target for blood-sucking. In addition, due to the existence of weaknesses, he sucked there is no need for blood. In this case, he will not drink blood. But this world is different. Jia Yan in this world is not considered a strong person, and there are more suitable objects to absorb. For example, the child of the giant tribe in front of me. This child's strength doesn't look very strong, but what Jia Yan knows is that this child doesn't even have the slightest vigilance ability. Just like in the battle just now, he was actually beaten by the Great Elder and the Ape Clan. He was injured. In this case, if Jia Yan approached carefully, sucked the blood and ran away, he might still have a chance to escape. Fight. After Jia Yan's heart moved, he charged directly towards the child's exposed skin. Approaching the child, Jia Yan once again felt how huge this giant was. It took Jia Yan a lot of time to crawl to where his skin was. It's too big. For a creature like Jia Yan, I really haven't seen it with my own eyes. I simply don't believe that such a creature can exist in this world or this universe. In fact, Jia Yan also thought in his heart that this world is probably not a possible place for the previous universe, so it should have something to do with the twisted place of space that he first entered, but no matter what, Jia Yan I can't even figure out where this place is. In short, the only thing now is to survive well, and then find a way to return to his hometown. Of course, Jia Yan now has some ideas, and that is his own subspace talent. Since he can enter the subspace, and the feeling of this space is not much different from the subspace he entered before, Jia Yan might be able to return to his hometown as long as he performs similar operations. But the only problem is that if he wants to try to distort space in a place like the sixth degree, then he needs to have some kind of transformation equivalent to the one that brought him into this world last time. As for what is the opportunity for transformation? Jia Yan doesn't know either. He only knew that he needed to trigger a turn there, and he definitely needed strength. If he had strength, at least he wouldn't be a little confused the next time he was swallowed, so that he could properly record what happened to him. So when you need strength, now is a good time to try. What Jia Yan was looking for was the neck of the giant child. The child was on the ground, playing with a huge round stone that looked like a mountain peak. For them, they have nothing else to play with, and being able to play with something like this is already an extremely happy thing. When Jia Yan reached his neck, perhaps the child actually felt it, and suddenly patted the back of his neck with his palm. Fortunately, Jia Yan had already felt the child's movement before this, and quickly flew into the air. But the child didn't hear the sound of Jia Yan flying up, and started playing with the spherical stone in his hand again. After Jia Yan was startled, he continued to glance at the child's neck. His needle found quickly. For him now, the sharpest organ in his body is not his front feet, but his mouth needle. Even though Jia Yan didn't use his needle as an attack weapon, this needle was indeed extremely important to Jia Yan. It was even like a food tool to him, so even if Jia Yan knew, the needle is sharper than his own front feet, but he rarely uses the needle as a weapon in combat, because he is afraid that one end of the needle will break, or his head will be attacked by his opponent. So there is no such thing as using a mouth needle. But it was different now. If he wanted to suck blood, he could only use a mouth needle. Fortunately, the needle is sharp enough. Puff. Jia Yan gently inserted his needle into the child's neck. So hard. Jia Yan felt a slight shock instantly. You must know that his needle was really the sharpest organ in the body, but when it was pierced in the child's neck, he was blocked by a shocking force. Hey, it seems to be itchy. At this moment, the child felt another tingling sensation on his neck, so he reached out again to scratch it. But Jia Yan flew a little further away again. It seems that the blood of the giants is not so easy to suck. Next time, we need to find a place that is easier to penetrate. Jia Yan slowly lowered his body again, and the child continued to play. This was his chance to test again. Not long after, Jia Yan finally succeeded. He inserted his needle into a certain blood vessel of the child. Then, Jia Yan didn't dare to move much and started sucking blood directly. Fortunately, even though there were mutations along the way, some of the anesthetic-like toxins in Jia Yan's body never disappeared. In other words, they evolved and mutated along with Jia Yan's body, becoming stronger step by step. Of course, with Jia Yan's use this time, he has found a better target. The child first felt some numbness and itching on his neck, but soon he felt nothing. Jia Yan's venom worked. This venom was no longer the venom of ordinary mosquitoes. The effect was many times better. Only then could it have an effect on a child of the giant tribe. Next, Jia Yan started to devour it in big mouthfuls. This is so refreshing. This feeling. The blood of the giants has such a great effect on me. It's not bad. Jia Yan first felt that the blood he absorbed was in the form of complete energy. It had an extremely shocking effect in his body, like an explosion in an instant. Then, he felt a huge force in his body, running like crazy, rapidly decomposing the absorbed blood in an instant. This is the sucking ability of a mosquito that has reached the middle level of a star. An extremely large child of the giant clan was absorbed by him, and Jia Yan quickly absorbed a lot of blood and energy without even noticing it. Of course, this blood and energy is just a small and insignificant thing to this child. But for Jia Yan, this point is almost related to whether he can do things quickly and improve his strength. The feeling of this power is simply terrifying. Even some of the highest levels of power that I have swallowed before, such as the essence and blood power of the senior evolutionary beast, are not comparable. Fortunately, I am an intermediate level star, otherwise I would be dead now. It might burst directly. Jia Yan was shocked by this feeling at first, and almost screamed with joy, but then he suppressed it. Power passes through the blood, suddenly exploding and dissipating in the body. Jia Yan seemed to be drunk, swaying until he was full. Then he didn't care so much and flew directly from the child's body. The giant mosquito's abdomen seemed to have suddenly become filled with some liquid, bulging out. But Jia Yan is not like an ordinary mosquito that cannot fly after drinking too much. After all, he is not an ordinary mosquito, his strength is far beyond words, and at this moment, this world cannot be measured by just one earth. The house where the giants live is as huge as the earth, and the surrounding world, the mountains and forests, is as huge as the universe to Jia Yan. Of course, this cannot be the earth. It feels so good. This power is much greater than I imagined. Start digesting it quickly. Jia Yan flew into a huge bush. Surrounded by creatures that were either bigger than Jia Yan or not as big as Jia Yan, they were just ordinary creatures. When Jia Yan suddenly burst out with power and warned them to leave, these creatures one by one, they rushed away in all directions. After all, Jia Yan's strength has reached its peak in this world, at least for such a small creature. Even if he is not at the level of the Great Elder, he will definitely be an extremely powerful person. So to this group of ordinary creatures, his aura was like tracing back to its source, instantly causing them to flee in all directions. The surrounding area became quiet, and Jia Yan was able to quickly practice and repair here. These days, Jia Yan has not suffered much physical damage, but when he traveled through the twisted space before, Jia Yan was already scarred. Even if it was not exposed to the outside world, his body was actually quite injured. But now that he suddenly had such a huge supplement of power, Jia Yan directly started to decompose the blood power in his body, regardless of the waste. The blood of the giants, even if it was just a child, its power definitely made Jia Yan overjoyed. However, while he was absorbing it, he also heard the giant child playing not far away, who only realized it later and exclaimed in surprise. "It's so itchy. Why am I so itchy? Did I get bitten by some grass?" he exclaimed again and again. The numbing and itching feeling was of course the effect of the anesthetic secreted by Jia Yan's body. However, the effect is just like other mosquitoes on the earth. It will cause other biters to feel numb and itchy after biting for a period of time. This is because the biological medicine of the anesthetic contains a certain amount of acidity, etc. Once the numbness passes, you will have a similar feeling. Of course, this feeling is actually not that unusual among the giants in this world. Just like on Earth, it is difficult for humans to fundamentally solve the bite of insect-like creatures. Among the giants in this world, there are actually certain creatures that bite giants and other creatures, and even some of them survive directly into the giant clan's vessels. Of course, this kind of parasitism does not have much harm. In short, they often enjoy being bitten by other creatures. This has nothing to do with strength. Just like humans on Earth, they know that there are countless billions of bacteria or other biting creatures living in their bodies at all times. They will naturally be unhappy. Oh, forget it, I continued to play with my beads, and suddenly I felt a little tingly or something else. The child felt strange, but he didn't care and continued to play. Ha, this kind of child has very low senses and low vigilance towards affairs. It is indeed a bit similar to the children on the earth. But I like his character. I will take my time and absorb the blood of this kind of child first. One day, I will find my way back. Jia Yan saw that the child didn't have much reaction, so he smiled and didn't care, and started his own refining practice directly. The blood of this little giant is almost the greatest tonic for Jia Yan. And as I said just now, Jia Yan suffered extremely serious injuries, and in addition these days, he has hardly supplemented the power he has used in a strange world. Now that he suddenly comes to an extremely effective way to repair energy, it is a great thing for Jia Yan. Gurgling gurgling. The giant mosquito's round belly quickly decomposes the energy Jia Yan needs, and then directly turns it into Jia Yan's original power to repair injuries. Under this kind of repair, Jia Yan's body and lost strength were quickly replenished. Great, next, I will slowly steal the blood from his body. Children are always a little less wary of external forces, so I can steal his blood while repairing or practicing. Jia Yan felt extremely huge energy in the bushes. That was the return of the head of the family. Rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky only represents the author Buletinu's views. If any content is found to be in violation of national laws, please delete it. Our position is only committed to providing a healthy and green reading platform. Thank you all. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletinu. Chapter 1497. For a moment, Jia Yan felt a little worried whether this guy would find him, but soon, Jia Yan knew how immature his thoughts were. The head of this giant clan is a man who appears to be a middle-aged man. He had a scowl on his face. It is getting harder and harder to find food in this forest. Although those small creatures can be full, it is difficult for giants like us. He was extremely depressed. He recently discovered that the strength of some small creatures in the forest had increased. He was not afraid of this, but children and women might be hurt, so he was still worried. Why don't we just go to the city? My family is called a country boy by my relatives in this forest. We are laughed at by them every time we go to the city. What do you know? They have houses in the city and other ways of living. People like us who live in the forest have almost no survival skills when we go to the city. How can we survive? It's better to stay here in the forest, you will never be too hungry. Jia Yan felt a sense of surprise as he listened to the couple's conversation among the grass. Because their dialogue is actually very similar to ordinary creatures. It's also firewood, rice, oil, salt, sauce, vinegar, and tea, and it also vaguely reveals what kind of city it is. It seems that what Jia Yan thought is true, this huge giant race actually has a city. So what is the city like? After Jia Yan listened a little, he didn't care what they thought. Because the blood of the giant child he absorbed has reached the point where it is about to boil. The terrifying power has been making his body flood with power, gushing up. If the absorption and control are not accelerated, Jia will be killed. It is unlikely that the rock support will explode, but such huge power will be wasted. So he concentrated on digesting his own energy. This power simply exceeds the many giant energy minerals I have absorbed. If there is anything that can be compared with the energy I have swallowed before, at least it must be the biochemical mediation stone from the biochemical star field. Compared to that, Jia Yan was amazed while absorbing it. You must know that although he said that the biochemical mediation stones were comparable, in fact, he only swallowed a few biochemical mediation stones, and after swallowing a few, they had no effect. But this blood is different, at least the quantity is absolutely guaranteed. Moreover, Jia Yan swallowed so much in one breath and didn't feel any of it slowly losing its effectiveness. This illustrates several important points. First, the blood is of a very high level, at least up to the level of the biochemical mediation stone. Don't underestimate the level of the biochemical mediation stone. You must know that the biochemical mediation stone is one of the top treasures in the biochemical star field. If it is brought to the outside world, it can be sold at a very high price. The second is that either the blood of the giants can be absorbed by Jia Yan in large quantities, or that Jia Yan's ability to absorb energy has increased as his strength increases. In short, he can actually absorb such a huge amount of blood into his mouth. There was no sense of saturation, which meant that if there was any more, he could continue to absorb it. And this blood gives me the feeling that even if their power slowly becomes less effective on me, no matter how weakened it is, as long as I absorb it, it will always have some effect. Doesn't it mean that as long as I have can we use the blood of the giants to become stronger all the time? After Jia Yan felt this, he was shocked and happy about the blood of this giant family. What is his main purpose of wandering and adventuring in the universe? It's not just to become stronger. And now, although he doesn't know the way back, there is a way to become stronger here. For Jia Yan, this is like finding a reason to stay here. Don't think so much. Let's digest the absorbed blood first. Jia Yan was silent and in deep sleep. His body was hidden in that blade of grass, and he was constantly emitting super strong energy fluctuations in all directions, so that the native creatures without any intelligence did not dare to approach. Jia Yan himself slowly went through the process of becoming stronger, this time in such an environment that seemed unsafe but was actually not too dangerous. This kind of strengthening is not another physical mutation, but a process of strengthening the body after the mutation. Moreover, this giant child's blood actually seemed to have some information about the world. Even though Jia Yan didn't have such a clear grasp of this information, this feeling was real. Slowly, because of the devouring of blood, his feelings for the world suddenly became much more intimate. I also faintly noticed that my mood of being isolated from the world was slowly getting smaller. In other words, the world seems to have accepted him because he swallowed the blood of the giant child. This is an extremely important matter. Even if Jia Yan's thought of the world accepting him is actually his own delusion, he really feels that he has no desire for the world after swallowing the blood of this local giant child. A little more friendly. Buzz buzz. Waves of faint fluctuation slowly erupted among the blades of grass. In this place, only a few thousand kilometers away from the blades of grass, is the residence of the giant family. Of course, thousands of kilometers are very far away to people on Earth, but to this world, it seems like a place that can be reached in 1 or 2 steps. Especially for the extremely terrifying giant clan, each of them is 1,000 kilometers high. Thousands of kilometers can be traversed casually. The place where Jia Yan is located is as if it is at their doorstep. But Jia Yan is not worried about any danger, because the place where he is like a bush. Although the giant family is powerful, they will not just go into the bush if nothing happens, right? So even if he emits waves of fluctuations, the giant family doesn't have any energy sensing methods, so they don't have to worry about them detecting him. And even if they could detect it, they probably wouldn't mind it at all, because their family's strength was immense. Jia Yan just hid in the vegetation. Slowly, the energy emitted by his body slowly decreased. This was because Jia Yan slowly absorbed and restrained the emitted power, otherwise it would definitely be a waste. Therefore, the power radiated out disappeared like this, and was replaced by Jia Yan's body crawling among the blades of grass. This shrub-like place is like a forbidden area for other creatures. Even if the feeling of energy disappears, there are still many creatures who never dare to set foot here again. But there are always some short-sighted people who slowly approach Jia Yan because they have forgotten the horrific memories. This is a mantis-like creature. It slowly crawled closer to Jia Yan. There were sparkles in his eyes. Even at this moment, it is uncertain whether it remembers that there is a powerful existence here, because this mantis has been looking at Jia Yan, and there is even a hint of fear in his eyes. The color of greed. If Jia Yan could be killed directly, it might be able to unlock its own intelligence and even become a powerful race in the forest. Therefore, he has a very deep understanding of Jia Yan's current inability to take action, and even feels that directly killing Jia Yan and cannibalizing his body will make his strength even higher. So he was approaching quietly. Bang! Bang bang bang! As he got closer, he could only hear loud sounds like drums in Jia Yan, the place where giant mosquitoes were crawling. If it were in the outside universe, this sound would even vibrate within hundreds of kilometers, but in this world, it would only fluctuate within a few kilometers. But the momentum was already considerable, and the approaching mantis creature seemed to have heard something that shocked it so much that it did not dare to move. But not long after, the mantis creature started to act cunningly again. He first did not dare to move when Jia Yan, the giant mosquito creature, released waves of terrifying power. In this way, even if Jia Yan was really awake, he would be able to say that he approached helplessly. But if he found out, Jia Yan didn't really wake up, but if he was still asleep at this moment, then he would definitely attack Jia Yan. Even the sound of a heartbeat is so terrifying. To this approaching mantis creature, it seems to be both dangerous and the best prey for him. But when the mantis came closer, less than 10 kilometers away from Jia Yan. In terms of the size of the creatures in this world, 10 kilometers is already very close. Jia Yan is even as big as 5 kilometers, but in this world it is still as small as a mosquito. This shows how huge the creatures in this world are. And in such a huge situation, 10 kilometers is really dangerous. But when the creature came and saw Jia Yan's body, boom! A huge force from the sky suddenly bombarded the place where the mantis creature was. This mantis creature had no chance of resisting at all, and was instantly bombarded backwards by this strange force. This mantis is said to be a mantis creature, but it does not have the wings of a mantis on Earth. The instant attack caused a ball of blood to burst out of its mouth. Even when it landed, it didn't feel like it was struggling. It just kicked its legs like that. Died. Jia Yan, who was startled by the mantis creature, seemed to have been sleeping for a long time and finally woke up. Well, this feels good. I actually slowly adjusted my body during the retreat. And my strength seems to have improved a lot. This world is really a very helpful world for improving one's strength. As soon as Jia Yan woke up, he felt very satisfied with the fact that he had absorbed the blood of the giant child and had greatly improved his strength. Huh? Why are there the remains of a mantis-like creature there? Did I kill it? I can't remember it at all. Jia Yan saw the huge mantis lying on the ground, but at this time, there were ant-like creatures on the body of the mantis, decomposing its body and then returning to its home nest. The mantis creature had no effect on Jia Yan, so he let the ant-like creature pull him away. Jia Yan looked around and saw that the native creatures seemed to be extremely afraid of him, and no one dared to approach him. It took me about 10 days to improve in seclusion this time. I don't know if my strength has been upgraded to the middle level of intermediate stellar, but although this kind of strength has been improved, it is not suitable for this world. Still extremely weak. Jia Yan looked at the outside environment, and then stared at the giant family's house in the distance. To Jia Yan, this house seemed to be in full detail, and he could clearly see every move inside. After all, the movements and size of the giant family are too big. Even if an earthling comes here, even if his eyesight is bad, he can still see the house of a family thousands of kilometers away. My strength improvement, at least temporarily, will fall on this giant family. Haha, let me show you the harassment from the mosquitoes from the earth. This night, a loud roar gradually sounded in the giant's cabin. There were two other slightly smaller breathing sounds, which also sounded, which meant that the masters of the breathing were fast asleep. But in the sound of breathing, a shadow of a slowly flying creature, like a tiny mosquito, slowly flew directly into the house of this giant family from the cracks in the house. There was something I seemed to have missed last time. I'm going to find a chance to test it this time. Jia Yanfei is in this giant's house. After several days of observation, he already knew that the schedule of this giant family was very normal. Not long after the sun set every day, he would start his own line of rest. Originally, according to this rest pattern, my physical condition and mental outlook would definitely be good. But in the first few days after arriving in this house, Jia Yan deliberately caused some noise in the middle of the night, causing the family to wake up once or twice in the past few days. The giants of this family were helpless and even got up to find out what could be so blind that they dared to come and cause trouble in their house. But every time Jia Yan made any noise, he would flee thousands of miles away, so they missed every time. And this is why when Jia Yan flew into the giant's house today, the whole family was sleeping soundly. Jia Yan wanted to taste the blood of adult members of the giant family, so he had to use such a despicable method. Buzz buzz. The giant mosquito flies in the air, its wings beating the air very fast. At first glance, it actually looks a bit like a small mosquito. Great, I'll go over and give it a try. How does this adult version of giant blood work? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1498. Jia Yan cautiously came to the side of the huge male giant first. After thinking about it, he still felt that it would be a bit risky to directly find the strongest one. So he ran up to the face of the female giant master, and after observing that there was no movement, he quietly stopped on the side of her face. The female owner's skin was good, and she should have maintained it to a certain extent. Unfortunately, under such a huge body, when Jia Yan stopped on her face, all he saw was pores and roughness, which could not be said to be beautiful. Jia Yan didn't care anymore. After he stopped, he raised his needle and slowly stabbed it into the female master's face. Before stabbing her, of course he found her veins. Just like ordinary mosquitoes, if they want to suck blood, they have to find a position. Otherwise, it is one thing that they can't suck any blood if they pierce, and another thing is that they can easily alarm the owner who is being sucked. Jia Yan's obvious IQ was much higher than those of ordinary mosquitoes, so he found the exact location after searching. Puff. In the outside world, his mouth needle was as big as a cannon, but in front of this giant woman, it was like a small needle, as small as a mosquito seen by people on Earth. Plunging into his face, Jia Yan instantly felt a greater resistance than the child giant's skin. Even this giant woman has taken great care of her skin. But compared to children, the skin is still rough. So Jia Yan spent a little effort to get in. Gurgling gurgling. A trace of blood was quickly swallowed into his mouth by Jia Yan. Boom. A terrifying aura erupted in Jia Yan's body. Jia Yan's eyes were filled with surprise. You must know that Jia Yan has already felt extremely terrifying when he swallowed the blood of the giant child. He originally thought that the blood of this female giant, even if it was more powerful than that child, would not be too powerful. But as soon as he took a bite, he realized that he was wrong. And it's so wrong. The blood of this female giant actually has more than twice the terrifying power of that child's blood. To Jia Yan, this was like a great tonic. As soon as he inhaled it into his body, it felt like there was a vibration all over his body, making him feel extremely comfortable. Good, suck more. Just as Jia Yan thought this, he was suddenly shocked. Because he saw an extremely huge palm, as if it could smash the stars, suddenly aimed at him and slapped it down violently. Escape. After Jia Yan was suddenly startled, he quickly pulled out his mouth parts, then flapped his wings and fled to the side. Moreover, he used his subspace talent and was about to step into it in an instant. Fortunately, the power left behind by the Tao Enlightenment Potion last time enabled Jia Yan to have a lot of understanding of the so-called Tao in this world, so he was able to use his Yin and Yang Tao to hide in the subspace, even if this speed will be much slower, but it is just right for use in this situation. And just when Jia Yan had just hidden into the subspace, the huge palm with a strong wind hit the woman's face with a snap. If a terrifying blow hits Jia Yan doesn't know if he will be slapped to the pulp. But just like that, the woman just moved the corners of her mouth slightly and continued to sleep soundly. It turned out that the palm that was slapped was her own, and she just slapped her face casually because she felt itchy. Jia Yan was frightened, but the blood in his stomach had just been absorbed a little, so he took the risk and flew out of the subspace again. The female giant fell asleep again. Jia Yan moved to a place where it would be difficult to reach even if the giantess claps her hands again, and directly sucked blood for the second time. This time he encountered no further obstruction. After 3 minutes, Jia Yan, whose belly was rounded, flew up from the giantess. Slowly, fly high into the sky, and then fly out of the house. What a powerful force! I'm afraid that after I finish digesting it, my strength will be even greater. Jia Yan is very happy. The improvement in his strength brought by this family has reached the level where Jia Yan has been practicing hard in the outside world for a long time. If it weren't for the worries of the outside world, Jia Yan might really fall in love with this world. Indefinite. After all, the pursuit of huge power is Jia Yan's main direction in the future. Of course, right now, he has no way to leave. Even if he cares about her, there is no way to leave. Jia Yan stopped directly in a grassy area, and then crawled there, slowly digesting energy. And his strength has improved rapidly in the past few days. Even if there are any extremely powerful creatures in the surrounding grass, they will be affected by his aura. Even if they are not afraid, they will not approach them rashly. Time flies by again. A few days are not enough for Jia Yan to digest this absorption. But in this giant's house, things are changing every day. Even though the huge giants in this forest are invincible in the world, they obviously don't pay attention to this kind of thing, just like a human on Earth who lives outside a small mountain and doesn't care whether he can. It's like fighting an invincible opponent in this hill. The thing they were discussing was that this mountain forest, not to mention producing something that would make their family better off, even the food for their own family was somewhat insufficient. For this reason, the host and hostess of that family even had a quarrel. I said, I didn't go to my sister's house in the past. If so, our family would be embarrassed. I also know this, but there is no way now. We used to stay at my sister's house for a while, and then we found somewhere to make a living. Method. After all, it's not that you are relatively useless, otherwise why would we, mother and son, need to be so angry? The woman quarreled with the male host for a while, and the male host suddenly did not dare to speak. That's right, he is relatively useless and can only let his family live on the edge of the forest. Otherwise, if his family can live in the city, it will definitely be much better than now. Okay, but if your sister's family looks down on our family, don't blame me for falling out with their family. The male host seemed a bit tough, and he didn't have a good impression of the sister's family that the hostess mentioned. Okay, let's get ready and leave tomorrow. Tell Tet that he will be the one to take care of our family in the future. If he doesn't come back within a year, everything in the house will be given to him. The hostess's arrangements at home are quite orderly. The sound of the family's conversation could be heard in the surrounding forest, especially where Jia Yan was so close, it was as loud as a drum. Coincidentally, on that day Jia Yan was sitting on the grass. Boom! A sound that should have been earth-shattering, in this world, was only a little bit of movement, causing the grass blades to sway slightly. Jia Yan woke up. Very good. My strength has reached the middle stage of intermediate stellar stage very quickly. This speed simply shocked me. And this feeling of power doesn't mean anything unstable. Thanks to that feeling of Tao, I vaguely feel that with the power of Tao, even if I don't do more cultivation, as long as I have greater power, can go one step further, that is, reach the late stage of the midstellar stage. Jia Yan felt very energetic. This feeling of rapid improvement was something he had not experienced for a long time since he became stronger. Even if the evolved beasts are already among many races or strong men in the normal universe, and are considered to be the race that improves in strength relatively quickly, Jia Yan still feels as slow as a snail in his later improvements. But it's different in this world. In this world, there is a powerful existence that makes even Jia Yan feel extremely shocked, but on the other hand, there is also an improvement plan that makes even Jia Yan feel shocked. Especially the so-called Tao, for Jia Yan, it is not something that can speed up his improvement, but more of an understanding of combat effectiveness. Jia Yan can be sure that if the current self faces the previous strong men who have fought, will definitely win more easily. Even those late-stage stars, that is, the several god emperors, I might have a chance to kill. Jia Yan's heart flashed with excitement, and he became even more excited about his improved strength in this world. If he was in a hurry to get out before, but now after seeing his improvement speed, he realized that it didn't matter if he stayed here for a while longer. After all, the subspace had been discovered by Jia Yan. Even if there were some clues, he felt that as long as he searched the subspace carefully, there might be a way back. But he doesn't want to go back now. If he wants to go back, he must at least wait until his strength reaches the late stellar stage. If I can improve my strength here to the late stellar stage. The more Jia Yan thought about it, the more excited he became. After all, reaching the late stellar stage may be just reaching the late stellar stage for other creatures. Beings that can reach that level are all beings with earth-shattering talents. In terms of combat power, each one has its own unique power. Therefore, there is no possibility of cross-level combat, or it is difficult to have the possibility of cross-level combat. But Jia Yan is different. He is an evolved beast. What scares others most about evolved beasts is that the more advanced the evolved beasts are, the farther away their combat power is from other creatures. If Jia Yan reaches the late stage of stellar level, then it is no exaggeration for his combat power to be able to fight against a peak star level being when he first enters. Even if Jia Yan reaches the pinnacle of the star, then he may even have a certain chance to fight with a real galaxy level, and at least he may be able to escape with his life from the hands of an ordinary galaxy level expert. Heh, this world might be the stepping stone for me to take off. Jia Yan smiled slightly and looked at the space around him. Hey, where is this family going? Suddenly Jia Yan discovered his blood source and was about to leave. But no, that huge family had actually prepared a pile of luggage and was about to leave the hut. They also confessed to their neighbor who was only tens of thousands of kilometers away from them, that is, the Tet whom Jia Yan had seen before was very powerful in combat and wiped out the forest humans at will, and even the Great Elder could not stop him in the slightest. You're leaving? Oh, forget it. You've all left one by one recently. I'll stay here alone. Maybe one day I'll leave too. After hearing the family saying that they were leaving, Tet was silent for a long time. Hey, is this family leaving? Are they going to the big city? Jia Yan was on one side, and even though he was tens of thousands of miles away, he could still hear the giant's voice clearly like a cannon. Jia Yan first heard them say that he was going to some big city, and he regretted that his 3 better blood foods were gone. But he thought about it carefully. No, the big city they went to must be a more complicated place than this small forest. As a small creature in their eyes, there will be no more danger in going to that kind of place. It should even be said that if there were giants there, I would be in less danger, but in this forest, I would be in more danger, because there are still a lot of creatures like the forest humans and the apes. And I also happen to be able to see more. With more knowledge in this world, maybe there is a way for me to get home faster. Or, in other words, there is something else that can enhance my strength. Woolen cloth. Jia Yan has been in this world for a while and already knows some things about this world, so he plans to follow this family and go on an adventure this time. Because his body has become smaller, or relatively smaller, Jia Yan's mental state at this time is like when he was weak, but more courageous. He can't do it without being brave and diligent. He is too weak in this world. He cannot find a way to make himself stronger, let alone become a strong man in this world. He may not even be able to find his way home, and he will be beaten by others. Maybe the strong ones will kill them. So, behind the family of 3 who set off, suddenly there was a flying creature that they couldn't feel the weight of, but in fact, it was almost as heavy as many Earth buildings. It was Jia Yan. My newly improved strength makes me feel that I have huge potential, and even my understanding of Tao is faintly better. As long as I can further understand it, maybe I can quickly grasp the meaning of Tao. And then realize the so-called fighting consciousness of Tao. Jia Yan was hiding on the surface of the male host's luggage. With the shaking of the luggage, his body was shaking and trembling relatively comfortably as he walked quickly. This is like a free carriage, and Jia Yan pokes his head out from time to time, which often shocks everyone. You must know that his flying speed is considered fast. Even in this world, it is not less than tens of thousands of kilometers an hour, but none of this can match the speed of the giants. Each of them can reach nearly 1,000 kilometers in one step, and if they take one step, they will be as long as Jia Yan Fei. It took me only half a day to walk an unknown distance. If I were asked to fly by myself, it would definitely take longer. I don't know how far that big city is. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1499. For creatures on Earth, it may be unimaginable what Jia Yan is going through now. Even the size and terror of this giant creature may be unimaginable. But it's actually easy to imagine, because as long as you think of him as a small mosquito on the Earth, You can easily calculate how amazing the giants Jia Yan sees now are through proportions. However, Jia Yan didn't really feel the difference between the giants and him as a mosquito. Because Jia Yan is not a real mosquito, and the giants are definitely not earthlings, the ratio of the two sides may be similar, but in fact Jia Yan has his own strength, and the giants seem to have unique abilities. Anyway, while they were on their way, Jia Yan saw something strange. For example, cities, because the giants were traveling too fast. During the journey, Jia Yan actually saw some cities-like places on their backs from a distance. But the giant didn't approach, and Jia Yan didn't give up on such a convenient car after thinking about it, so he didn't go down to see what was going on. Moreover, the so-called cities he saw from a distance were probably not cities that the giants could enter, but cities of other small creatures. Although the giants could easily destroy such cities, they did not get close, and even Jia Yan saw that this family of giants carefully avoided those cities when passing through them. Could it be that such a small city actually has the means to deal with this giant clan? Similar thoughts flashed through Jia Yan's mind. However, this kind of thought just passed by. For Jia Yan, at this time, he only needed to think about his own affairs. The reason why he doesn't go to those small cities is also very simple, because if these cities are inhabited by creatures as big as Jia Yan, then Jia Yan must not have had any advantages in the past, neither his strength nor his understanding of the world. It is impossible to achieve anything in this kind of city. It's better to take a risk and go with this family of giants to their so-called giant city. In fact, Jia Yan had thought about the sights of the giant city a lot, and also imagined that it might be grander. But when he actually got there, Jia Yan was still completely shocked by the astonishing sight. This terrifying giant city was reached by a family of giants 3 days after setting out from the forest. You must know that the giants' footsteps are extremely fast. It takes them 3 days to get there. If Jia Yan flies by himself, it may take even longer than this. And other races are even less likely to go so far so quickly. One thing that shocked Jia Yan was the sheer size of this giant's so-called city. This city feels like an ancient Chinese city on Earth, but the size and height of the city walls completely exceed Jia Yan's imagination. It's like an ancient giant city on Earth that has been magnified countless times. Perhaps the size of the entire city would take a giant person a day to walk, and its city walls are more than 10 times the height of the giant people. In other words, it is at least several thousand or even 10,000 kilometers long. High. The diameter of the Earth is only more than 10,000 kilometers. If we put an Earth on it, it would be about the same height as a city wall. This shows how terrifying this city wall is. Even with Jia Yan's eyesight, it is very difficult to see the top of the city wall. This involves the sight of small creatures. Because giants are huge, their sight can naturally see further. This is a terrible city. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never have believed that such a city existed in the universe. Jia Yan saw the scene of the city from a distance on the giant body and was speechless for a long time. But no one talked to him. And just like that, Jia Yan, led by this giant family, walked slowly towards the city. Wait a minute and see if there are any small animals following you. When passing the city gate, the soldier who was guarding the city, who looked tall and wore relatively heavy armor, said this to the family who entered. Small creature? Does it mean a creature like me? Jia Yan, who was in the giant clan, was slightly stunned. Then he instantly felt a little shocked. You must know that this giant race treats other small creature races with no regard for life and death. Even the forest human race, which seems to be no different from them except for size, will directly kill them. For flying creatures like him, it would definitely be more direct killing. Jia Yan was startled and quickly flew out from the back of his giant father. The soldier guarding the city seemed to have vaguely seen something, but he just glanced in the direction of Jia Yan's flight, but there was nothing to stop him. To them, small creatures like this should have no IQ. Yes, it's impossible for anyone with such flying creatures to go over and kill them. Then they will be tired countless times a day. Jia Yan flew quickly outside the city gate, because he knew that as long as he did not fly into the city, he would not be chased, and the facts proved that what he thought was completely correct. This city actually has such complete defenses. Why don't other creatures enter? Jia Yan looked at the family entering the city. The soldier guarding the gate took out a strange iron-like object and irradiated it. It was as if some electromagnetic wave swept through his body, followed by several creatures that seemed to have no intelligence. Was driven out. Jia Yan saw that even if those creatures flew out, they had huge injuries on their bodies. It was estimated that even if they escaped, they would not survive for long. I couldn't help but watch him feel like he was dead for a while. You must know that Jia Yan is also about the same strength as those creatures. If he had not fled directly just now, maybe the fate of these creatures would be his portrayal. Fortunately, Jia Yan escaped. This is a little different from what I imagined, but it is also normal. After all, this giant family is really too big. If everyone entering the city has not been inspected, there must be many kinds of creatures brought into the city. By then this city will be like a city with a rich biological population on the earth, and it will become unknown whether there may be an epidemic or something like that. Moreover, there are too many creatures in this world. The giants are just huge in size, not absolutely powerful, so it is understandable that they are so defensive. But if I don't enter, the dangers around me will still be too great. Do I have to enter the nearby forest or somewhere again? Jia Yan looked at the family entering the city and felt helpless knowing that he would part ways with them next. He originally thought that he would try it again in the next few days to see what the blood of the head of the family tasted like. In the past 3 days, Jia Yan's strength was spent digesting the blood of the female giant. With a free ride, he felt very stable. So his strength has improved again in the past few days. Although there is no level improvement, in fact, his strength has reached a certain peak. No, the outside world must be very dangerous. In this world, there shouldn't be many ways to defend yourself by flying. I'd better take the risk and fly into the city. Jia Yan was determined to enter this giant city. After all, for him, apart from giants, which are a huge risk, there should be fewer other creatures in the giant city. As for the giants, just like humans on Earth generally do not harm ants, they treat Jia Yan even if they see such a little creature, they probably won't care as long as it doesn't bother them or does anything detrimental to them. Just like this, Jia Yan slowly flew up in the city of giants. This city is so big that when flying around the wall, even if Jia Yan's flying speed reached hundreds of thousands of kilometers per hour, it would be difficult to fly to the edge. It is definitely not possible to fly in directly from the city gate, because even if there are not many ways to deal with the air, there may be defensive methods in such an important place. Then I will look for where in the city that may be attacked. Weak, because I can't afford any mistakes. Jia Yan looked at the height of the city. After flying for 2 hours, he finally arrived at an inaccessible section of the city wall. There were no giants patrolling as guards above. He simply flapped his wings and flew upwards. For Jia Yan, the wall was too high. At an altitude of 10,000 kilometers, it would take him a while to reach the height. Finally reaching the sky, Jia Yan looked inside and saw that there were no patrolling giants on the city wall, but it seemed a little strange here. I see, there are some bats on this city wall. Jia Yan finally understood why giants were not afraid of creatures coming from high altitudes, because there seemed to be bats roaming around on the city wall. This bat is exactly the kind of creature Jia Yan encountered when he first came to this world. They just look like bats, which doesn't mean they are bats. So at this moment, Jia Yan was a little relieved after knowing that the giant's arrangement at high altitude was this kind of bat. This kind of creature seems to be very similar to a bat. It finds its prey through sound waves and the like. So as long as I try not to fly high and don't attract their attention, I might still have a chance to enter this place without anyone noticing. Within the city, Jia Yan slowly leaned against the city wall and entered the section of the city wall. The next step was the most dangerous moment. He fell directly to the ground and slowly walked on the city wall with his 6 legs. He didn't dare to fly. If he did, he might be discovered by the bat stuck in the cracks in the wall and attack. For Jia Yan, this kind of bat may not be too strong now. After all, he has become stronger several times. Even if he can't beat the last one, he can definitely escape. But there is not only one such bat, but an unknown number of them in the gaps in the wall. If they were to find him, Jia Yan would definitely be torn into pieces. 1 step, 2 steps, Jia Yan slowly pressed against the edge of the city wall and slowly entered the city. Then he climbed on the bricks inside the city wall and walked down step by step. This process even wasted half a day of Jia Yan's time. After slowly reaching about half the height of the city wall, Jia Yan finally couldn't help it, flapped his wings and flew up. Looking back, the group of bats did not notice his movements, or their warning range was not at Jia Yan's height. So Jia Yan flew directly into the city in front of him. My God, this giant city is really amazing. Jia Yan just saw the city in front of him, and then he fell into a daze. He originally thought that this giant city was a city, but because the giant's appearance did not look like a smart creature, the city looked grand on the outside, but in fact, the inside of the city should be the same as Jia Yan imagined. Just some simple houses and the like. But to Jia Yan's expectation, when he entered the city, he found that this city was not much behind his ancient cities on earth. There are also Kyanglu and Yu inside, and the book garden is extremely prosperous. An endless stream of giants, some even wearing silk-like clothes, walked along the streets. Among them, there is also some kind of extremely huge creature, like a dinosaur, probably the horse of the giant family, pulling the cart back and forth on the street. This is not backward in any way, and it does not have the feeling of drinking blood and drinking hair as Jia Yan imagined. Instead, it is full of civilization and ancient meanings. It can be said that it is completely different from the giant city Jia Yan imagined. When Jia Yan was watching to see if there was any place to stay, he was suddenly startled. Because on the street, the giant family who had been in the city for more than half a day just walked up to him. Didn't they enter the city a long time ago? Why are they still wandering around the city? Could it be that there was an accident? Jia Yanfei flew towards this family. After all, they were all acquaintances. Of course, this was not the reason for Jia Yan to approach them. The biggest reason for Jia Yan to fall in love with them again was because the family took him with them for 3 full days and still did not find his dependent. If it were another giant clan, Jia Yan really couldn't guarantee that he would not be discovered. So for Jia Yan, this excellent source of blood food that has been confirmed to be risk-free, since he has the opportunity to see it again, why not continue to hide it on the surface of their bodies? Soon, Jia Yan tried his best to avoid the eyes of the family and landed on the bottom of the package behind the child. As soon as he landed, he heard the giant male head of the family seem to be angry. What kind of sister are you? She talks nicely and says that we should find a place to stay nearby first, and she will help us see if there are suitable houses and jobs. She doesn't want our family to live with them at all. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1500. What did you say before you came? That your sister had already promised that she would take care of you and let our family come to the city. Now that we are here, her care is just a matter of words. The female giant lowered her head, not knowing what to say. Because her sister's family really acted inhumanely in this matter. And his husband was right. Her sister's family was not happy about his family's arrival at all. Instead, they were shocked and then refused their request to stay at her house. Before she came, She kept saying that she would let her family live in her home, but when they arrived, she actually refused. This was completely bullshit beforehand, but things changed later. Okay, fortunately, I still have a brother here. Now let's go to my brother's house and visit him. The giant man seems to have a way out. Their retreat was a family that was also having a hard time, but this time the giant man's brother accepted their family. Okay, now that this family has settled in, I can see if there is any chance. However, the energy in my body has not been fully absorbed yet, and I cannot receive energy for the time being. It is better to take a look at the environment around here. Jia Yan knew that he could not always rely on this family. After all, although it was difficult for them to find Jia Yan, there would always be times like that. If he was discovered, he would be in great danger. Therefore, it is still necessary to keep a certain distance from them when there is no blood sucking. Jia Yan flew out of the brother's house where he was staying temporarily. The gigantic house was so huge that Jia Yan flew for a while before leaving the yard of the house. Hey, although there are relatively few creatures here, they are not without them. Jia Yan just stayed in the yard for a while, but found that there were many creatures in the house of the giant brother. For example, the bugs on the ground have been eating the microorganisms in the ground. Oh no, if you look at it from the eyes of people on Earth, these bugs look like creatures as big as a human. But to the creatures in this world, this is already the category of microorganisms. There are also many insects on the trees that are devouring the nutrients in the trees to survive. It seems that the so-called prevention and control of outside creatures is not absolute. After all, this is a world and the city is so big. How can they make it completely inaccessible to outside creatures? Of course, it will definitely make the more dangerous ones it cannot be entered, and even if it is entered, it will definitely be killed directly. Jia Yan finally understood. This giant city is so big that Jia Yan felt like he had flown for a long time even if he just flew out of the yard and took a look at a few houses. In the middle of the night, Jia Yan has been flying in the streets. His body was like a real mosquito, flying quickly through the city. The streets without people were completely free for Jia Yan to fly. He looked at each house one by one, but he felt a little strange in his heart. Many of the people in this giant city seem to have the same sense of strength as that family, but the advantages of this race are so great. If there are no people who have mastered the power of Tao, wouldn't they just give up their advantages to others? Jia Yan didn't quite believe that there was no strong person among the giants at all. Instead, at this moment, he hid on the roof of a house and thought about it quietly. That's right, because this is basically a relatively civilian area. If it goes to a powerful place, there will definitely be relatively powerful beings. Jia Yan flew up and looked at the center of the city from a distance. After thinking about it, Jia Yan gave up the idea of visiting, because to him, it didn't make any sense whether there were any powerful beings in this giant clan. How? So what if not? With Jia Yan, he was killed by the giants with one punch, but without him, he was still killed by the ordinary giants. And if there really is a strong man from the giant clan who has mastered Tao, and Jia Yan rushes over recklessly, this will be the danger. So he simply gave up the idea of visiting, and then somewhere, he quietly landed on a blade of grass. He casually killed an insect-like creature about the same size as Jia Yan that came over, and Jia Yan became immersed again. I still have some room for improvement in strength. When I finish improving my strength, I will suck the blood of the men from the giant family. But in fact, I can already confirm that the family members around me are not that powerful at all. You can directly smoke other people's families, but that family is not something I'm wary of, so it's better to smoke them. Jia Yan felt that it was safer to suck the blood of that family. Moreover, after he sucked the blood of the child and the woman a few days ago, although their faces were swollen and extremely itchy the next day, it didn't take long for them to get used to it. If it were another family, They might find out if there were bugs that bit them until their faces were swollen, and they would definitely have to rummage through all the boxes and cabinets. The status of the giant clan in this world is so high that even Jia Yan suspected that they should be the most powerful among creatures of this size, otherwise they would not be able to build such a huge city. Of course, Jia Yan can't guarantee whether this is the case, and even this world is still a lot of unknown places for Jia Yan. For example, how big is this world, or is the place where this world is located a planet, or is it just a flat land? There are too many things that Jia Yan doesn't know. Especially if this was a planet, how big would it be? And how big is the sun that shines on the entire planet? How does the planet's orbit work? To Jia Yan, this is like a huge secret and mystery. But no matter what, at this moment, Jia Yan still wants to return to the normal universe outside. When my strength reaches the late stellar stage, let's give it a try. If I can reach it, even if I meet a star peak existence in the outside world, I will still have a certain degree of combat effectiveness, and even a galaxy-level powerhouse will take action. Maybe I can escape. And if I reach the peak of the stars, I will have a certain degree of confidence in escaping directly from the weakest galaxy level. Coupled with the Tao I have learned in this world, maybe all this will give me more, maybe there will be a surprise. Jia Yan fully knew that his strength would probably improve very quickly in this world. But he doesn't want to continue to advance in this world just yet. When he reaches the strength around the late stage of a star, he will find a way to escape from here. At that time, his strength should be enough, and the people outside should not have waited for him for too long. Moreover, with the Tao that he has mastered here, he might be able to be even more powerful after he goes out. Forget it, let's improve my strength first. I don't know how much blood it will take with the blood of these giants to raise my strength to the lower level of a star. Jia Yan was about to take a rest and digest the blood power that he had not yet fully digested. But just as he was about to take a rest, a strange voice suddenly sounded. Hey, this brother is actually practicing on my territory. Ha, you haven't woken up yet, don't you know this is my territory? The sound suddenly sounded, making Jia Yan's heart skip a beat, then he calmly turned his head and looked at the place where the sound came from. It turned out that more than 100 kilometers away from Jia Yan, a fly-like monster tilted its head at Jia Yan and said the words just now. Flies. My friend, I have no intention of taking over your territory. I'm just going to stay here for one night and leave tomorrow. After Jia Yan knew that there were small creatures in the city, he knew that there must be some intelligent creatures here, but he didn't expect that he would see them so soon, and he also said that he had robbed other people's territory. This caused Jia Yan to have some problems. He had never thought about fighting for land in the city. However, he had not thought about it, and it did not mean that the creature would think or believe in Jia Yan. He would only think that Jia Yan, an outsider who was new to him, was here to steal his territory. Ha, you said you're leaving tomorrow? I've seen a lot of people like you. If you leave tomorrow, you'll leave the day after tomorrow, and then you'll have to wait indefinitely the day after tomorrow. You have to know that I've killed several people like you, boy. You tell me whether you want to leave or not. This is the ancestral land of my fly family for 8 generations, and the 3 surrounding houses are my territory. If you are wise, just get out. The fly monster didn't care about Jia Yan, but he didn't want to do anything. For the creatures in the city, night is the best time to move, because there are no giants walking outside at this time, so night is their world. It is relatively safe here, but because there is not much territory, the competition for territory has become a phenomenon that often causes death and injury. This fly creature also fought frequently, so at this moment, he saw that Jia Yan seemed to be stronger, so after weighing it, he did not take action directly. By not taking action, he thought it was a friendly gesture towards Jia Yan. If it were another creature's territory, it would definitely be fighting to the death by now. but Jia Yan didn't mean to appreciate it. I'm sorry, but here, I'm really undecided tonight. Because I have nowhere to go. Jia Yan didn't lie. Even if he could go back to that family's room, the feeling of being next to a giant was definitely not very interesting. He might even be noticed by them and be destroyed if he wasn't careful. Kill. So Jia Yan simply stopped leaving here, and he also felt the strength of this creature. It was estimated that the gap with his own was still a bit big. Jia Yan felt that there was no chance of him missing, so he refused to leave. It just so happened that Jia Yan wanted to use a battle to test his skills and find out how he was doing now. I'll go, kid, you asked for it yourself. The fly creature was instantly furious when it saw that Jia Yan had no idea of giving in. You must know that although the creatures in the city are not as dangerous as the creatures outside, the number of battles will not be much less. Moreover, some of the giant clan's techniques or powerful supplements and other residues were found by them, so each of these creatures is relatively capable, and their strength is still much stronger than some ordinary creatures in the outside world. The fly creature flapped its wings and attacked Jia Yan with a bang. This was Jia Yan's first battle with a flying creature after a long time. So fast. Jia Yan suddenly saw that the fly creature had exceeded the fastest speed he could achieve in an instant. He looked shocked, and then quickly retreated to the space behind him. To Jia Yan, he is a mosquito. Although he has become stronger step by step, his mosquito physiological structure makes it impossible for Jia Yan to fly faster than his eyes at the same size of that fly. What's more, this fly also has unique fighting skills, and even has traces of Tao in its body, so at this moment, Jia Yan cannot compete with him in flying speed. But he has another move, which is subspace. The fly creature suddenly came to the ground where Jia Yan was previously, and hit the ground with his foot. Huh! He was suddenly stunned. To know how fast he is against you, is also extremely confident. In every battle, he almost always flaps his fly wings quickly, and then bursts out with terrifying speed, killing or severely injuring the enemy in one step. It was precisely because the advantage of this trump card was so great that he didn't think that the flying creature in front of him could cause too much danger to him. But what he didn't expect was that he used a full 80% flying speed, and the opponent suddenly disappeared when he attacked. When this fly creature felt extremely surprised at Jia Yan's sudden disappearance. In the space behind him, a strange sharp foot stretched out quietly. Puff! This foot was almost instantaneous, and without the fly creature expecting it at all, it stabbed through his body instantly. What? The fly creature suddenly felt that its abdomen was pierced directly by a foot that didn't know where it came from, and its expression suddenly changed wildly. The fly creature seemed to have no defense against Jia Yan's subspace talent. It might be like the ape creature family that Jia Yan had faced before. He had never seen or even heard of this ability. Jia Yan hit the target with one blow, and naturally there was no possibility of survival for this fly-like creature. Jia Yan's brainwave power exploded in his body. Because of his improved strength, his brainwave power has been able to leave his body slightly. Of course, this departure is not a simple departure of the brainwave power, but the use of the power of Tao to transform this brainwave power into something related to the world. Compatible power. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1501. Welcome, please remember the address of this website, read on your mobile phone so that you can read the latest chapter of the novel Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky at any time. /U003CT/U003E. Although this fusion may not be useful in the outside world, to Jia Yan now, it is like a sharp weapon. Puff. The fly creature actually exploded instantly when the brainwave power exploded. According to its strength, it should have been able to survive for a period of time after being seriously injured like this, but under the crazy stirring of this power, it still burst open directly. This fly creature seemed to be in disbelief, because if he didn't die, he might still have some back UPS that he needed to use now. At least Jia Yan could be seriously injured. But he could not have expected that a flying creature like Jia Yan, whose strength seemed to be similar to his own, would have so many methods. Not only can it disappear directly in front of him, but it also has such terrifying brainwave power that his backhand has no chance to use it. So it dies directly, and the one that comes out because the backhand cannot be used dies. What the fly creature didn't know was that he was wrong about two things. The first point is that Jia Yan's methods are indeed much more than he imagined. But he probably didn't think about the second point before he died. That was Jia Yan's strength, which was completely beyond his imagination. It was much stronger than it was, and not what this fly-like creature thought was about the same strength as him. I feel that this guy's strength is an ordinary star level. Although on the surface, it may not be far from my strength. In fact, I am already a star level, and I am an evolved beast. The strength cannot be generalized to that of ordinary creatures. Compared to me, his strength may be at least 3 times worse. Jia Yan wanted to praise this fly creature, but he actually thought it was about the same strength as Jia Yan and rushed to attack him. But this fly creature revealed several key things to me. The first one is that he mentioned the territory, which shows that there are also small creatures in the city, and these small creatures actually there is also the concept of territory. The second point is that the territory of the creatures here should be calculated based on the area. At least he just said that this territory was passed down from his ancestors. So will there be any problems after I take it? Jia Yan will not look down upon the small creatures in this world. Even if they are just a group of creatures trying to survive in the cracks under the giants, they are definitely not simple creatures. But since I have decided to stay in this area, I have to occupy this place. Otherwise, I won't even have a corner, so how can I be decent? Jia Yan didn't think that his strength would not be able to occupy even a little territory among these small creatures. And as he had just seen, the center of the city was the most prosperous place. If he was not mistaken, even small creatures must have gathered there. In this remote place, in a land of civilians, those who stay here must be weak or not that powerful. In fact, Jia Yan is not afraid of encountering extremely powerful creatures. As long as they are not stronger than the Great Elder, Jia Yan feels that he can easily escape after regaining a certain amount of subspace talent. So he didn't worry and stayed safely in the residence of this fly creature. But before Jia Yan could recuperate for a long time, another uninvited guest arrived before a few hours had passed. Yeah, Sogo, today is the day when your death is about to happen. Well, who are you, Sogo? Another creature that looked like a small beetle rushed into the courtyard area where Jia Yan was located from the outside world. And behind this beetle, there are several descendants of the beetle, which looks like a small army. They should have come to cause trouble for the fly creature, but when they rushed to the place where Jia Yan was, they did not see the fly creature. Instead, they saw a flying creature lying quietly in the area where the fly creature should have been. You killed Kang Wu? Bastard, we haven't taken revenge on Kang Wu yet. You killed him. What should we do? Kill him, and we will avenge Kang Wu for killing our brother. Haha, Xiao Qi, you are smarter. Killing him would be equivalent to avenging your brother. Xiao Qi is so smart. He deserves to be the smartest among us. Kang Wu died in his hands. If we kill him, it means that Kang Wu died in our hands. This is our killing of Kang Wu. It's awesome, it's awesome. Several beetle creatures seemed to suddenly change their faces. Not long after talking to themselves, they charged directly towards Jia Yan. Jia Yan watched the play of these creatures coldly. He could see that these creatures were not that stupid, but Jia Yan did not point it out, but at this moment, his expression was slightly playful. Because he knew that his strength should still be overwhelming in front of these creatures, and that beetle creature was probably a guy who was similar to his current apparent strength. He looked at Jia Yan being able to kill the previous fly creature. He actually wanted to play tricks at this time. Oh, a group of creatures want to kill me. Do you think my strength is what it seems? Jia Yan didn't know why. He had just mastered a little bit of Tao, and the creatures in this world could clearly see his strength. If he had not mastered Tao before, other creatures would not be able to see what his strength was, or he said he couldn't even tell whether he had any strength. This makes it impossible for Jia Yan to show off. Fortunately, the strength he shows is not all his strength. Kill. A beetle creature rushed in front of Jia Yan. Jia Yan just sharply slashed his front foot. Puff. The small beetle creature that rushed towards him was directly hit by Jia Yan and cut off one of his long claws. Oh my god, that's amazing. The few beetle creatures that followed behind did not dare to move forward any further. The beetle creature with one of its claws cut off saw the power of Jia Yan's blow and quickly fled back, fearing that Jia Yan would hit him again and kill him directly. How about it? Do you still want to pretend to be crazy and act stupid, and then take the opportunity to kill me? Jia Yan calmly used the common language of this world and asked the stunned group of beetle creatures in front of him. I don't dare anymore, great God, we don't dare anymore. Those beetle creatures, at this moment, were all greatly shocked by Jia Yan's strength. You must know that Jia Yan's strength, at first glance, looks like an ordinary star level 1, but when you actually feel it, it's nothing like this anymore. This is a great god who hides his strength. We dare not mess with him. These beetle creatures actually have good minds. At this moment, they no longer dare to pretend to be stupid and directly approach Jia Yan as if they want to hug his little brother. They were afraid that Jia Yan would kill them directly. Humph, put away your acting skills. I know that you are good at it, and I also know that you are despicable, so stop pretending. If you get close again, I will kill them all. Jia Yan said calmly. Although he estimated that if he wanted to kill all these creatures, he would have to release a huge amount of power, but it was not impossible. Master, we are not close, haha, how dare we approach you? Don't get me wrong, we came here to cause trouble for Kangwu this time. Since the master has killed him, then we left, everything is fine. The beetle creature who spoke first, after knowing that he could no longer deceive Jia Yan, laughed directly, and then led a group of beetle brothers to retreat. Did I let you move? Jia Yan looked cold. Master, what's the matter with not letting us move? Can't we just leave? A desperate feeling suddenly appeared in the eyes of the beetle creature, as if Jia Yan didn't let them leave, they would really fight for it. This beetle creature is considered smarter, and its approach is absolutely reasonable, because he can also see that although the creature in front of him is powerful, it is not the same for the number of beetle creatures. If they attack in groups, in short, there is a 20 to 30% chance of victory, but they are not willing to give up. But if Jia Yanzhen seems to be able to crush them and humiliate them, this is not something they are willing to bear. The strength of both sides is not so bad that it makes them despair. Oh, I just want to ask, are you not even willing to give me time to chat about the territory around you? Jia Yan's eyes suddenly turned cold. Well, if we just chat, that's fine. Master, don't be angry. The group of beetle creatures seemed to be more and more confused about Jia Yan's tough attitude. They don't know Jia Yan's strength. They only think that Jia Yan is an extremely strong person in the level through superficial feelings. But if it is just an ordinary class, wouldn't be so domineering when faced with a group of beetles like them. When something goes wrong, there must be a monster, which is why they deal with it more seriously. Okay, let me ask you, how many intelligent creatures are there in the houses around here? Oh, let me put it another way, in the houses around here, how many sites are occupied by others, and what resources do you have? Jia Yan asked calmly. Great God, our living area is not very large. After all, this city is still the territory of the giant clan, so the range we know is within a few million kilometers. There are a total of 7 giant clan houses here. There are more than 20 areas in total, and we are one of them, and Kangu's area is also one, but this area is yours now. But its status seems to be due to some ancestral friends who left it behind. Maybe after you take over this territory, people will come to trouble you after a while. The beetle creature's answer made Jia Yan stunned. Oh? Is there anyone who wants to cause trouble for me? I am already the owner of a territory. Does anyone dare to cause trouble for me? Is there any difference between the owners of these territories? Great God, it sounds like you don't know the inside story of the city. You are probably testing me. Isn't it okay if I say it? The beetle creature seemed to ask Jia Yan such a basic question, and felt that he was looked down upon by Jia Yan, so he was so angry that he directly told Jia Yan the so-called basic question. In this city, although the giants occupy the dominant position, they also acquiesce in our territory, because we can't share too many resources of the giants, and we have also negotiated to help them deal with certain small garbage, or other harmful creatures. So they acquiesce to our existence. But the giants don't like to see little creatures like us still fighting every day. This is more annoying to them, so in our territory agreement, there is the issue of being unable to fight for a long time. In order to maintain the implementation and stability of these laws, there is a large organization of our small biological race in the city. They will place a more powerful creature in an area as the controller. It doesn't harm the creatures inside, it just controls it, but it requires extracting a certain amount of property. For an outsider like you, who also killed Kang Wu, I guess the controller of our territory will definitely come to trouble you. As a controller, you can imagine his strength. As for the resources here, they are quite good. Among these giants, one is a food product factory, and it makes certain foods that increase the strength of giants. It may be ordinary food for giants, but for giants, for small creatures like us, it is a powerful source of power, so our territory is actually a hotly contested area nearby. The beetle creature told a series of basic information about the territory of these areas in one breath. After he finished speaking, he still looked at Jia Yan eagerly, as if waiting for Jia Yan to praise him for what he said was right. Oh, that's it? Okay, since you have good intentions towards me, I won't embarrass you. But I have an idea here. I wonder if you are willing to cooperate with me. As soon as Jia Yan's words came out, he went to Shiyuan. The leader-like creature of the beetle creature felt bitter. He knew that Jia Yan would not let them go so easily. Even at this moment, he was deeply aware that even though they felt that Jia Yan was about the same strength as them, in Jia Yan's eyes, their strength was far inferior to Jia Yan. Otherwise, how could they be so aggressive? So he thought about it and didn't get angry. Instead, he calmly responded to Jia Yan's aggressive behavior and once again showed a more customized behavior. What kind of cooperation, please tell me, sir? As the beetle approached Jia Yan more and more, not only did the thought of fighting gradually decrease, but even the thought of escaping became difficult. After all, although the strength of a strong person is mainly judged by his breath, it can also be seen from his attitude. Jia Yan's attitude was too domineering, and it didn't seem like he was pretending, so he felt that he couldn't fight forcefully. I want to unify this million-mile radius. I hope you can help me. /U003C/T/U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1502. While controlling those beetle creatures, Jia Yan was also asking them about their knowledge of the world. In the previous forest, Jia Yan did not have such a direct opportunity to ask others about their knowledge of the world, and besides, except for those who had been out of the forest like the Great Elder, he did not have much knowledge about the creatures in the forest. But the creatures in this giant city are different. Each of them has a lot of contact with the giants, and the relative information will be rich. The giant race is really the leading race in this world. However, among the giants, are there still individuals who are much more powerful than ordinary giants? But in this giant family, there are still other races that can compete with them. Jia Yan slowly understood some of the components of this world. For example, in his opinion, they are star-level creatures, but in this world, they are all called one level, and that is the entry stage. Even the Great Elder is just the pinnacle of the Taoist level. Even this Taoist level covers a huge range. Even a child who accidentally understands a little bit of the Tao may not even be able to reach an ordinary outside world level. He couldn't win, but he still entered the Taoist level. And this level, as the lowest level assessment in this world, can reveal too much information. The first thing Jia Yan could think of was that the strength of this world was probably much greater than what he had previously imagined. Even after this world, Jia Yan already thinks highly of this place. But in fact, now he knows that this world is still more powerful than he imagined, because the first level of entering the Tao actually includes such a large cross-level strength. If it were not for the fact that there are more strength levels above, it would also not so general. Because these insect creatures are unclear about the level after entering the Tao, Jia Yan doesn't know what level will come next, but he knows that there will definitely be several major levels next, and there may even be more. There are also rumors of immortal in this world. Jia Yan has actually felt something through the word Tao, so he has no doubt about this. Of course, the immortal mentioned here is translated as gods from the west of the earth, or other Buddhas, are okay, but in general, they are like gods. If this kind of existence is true, then even in this world, anyone can become a powerful person like a god. Then Jia Yan feels that it is unimaginable how terrifying this kind of existence can be. If this kind of existence reaches the outside universe, then the galaxy level or the territory lord level is probably not worthy of carrying shoes. Let alone them, even if a powerful person in this world who is a level higher than the Dao goes out to the outside world, I think they are all better than that domain master. The more Jia Yan learned about this world, the more frightened he felt. Because the level of strong men is far beyond his imagination, and to the creatures in this world, it seems that the whole world is really infinite. Jia Yan couldn't even imagine whether this world, or the land under his feet, was a planet or something else. If it were a planet, how big would it be? A giant's house is at least 10,000 kilometers away. This is the Earth placed there, and it is only that big. And in this giant city, there are more than thousands of such houses, so the size of the city will be many times larger than the sun. The city is like this. The vastness of the outside world is still unknown to Jia Yan. At least it took him 2 days to arrive at this giant city with the giant family. With the giant's footsteps, it must be easy to guess that this how big the world will be. This world is much beyond my imagination, or I have been calling the area of the universe where I was previously the outside world. But in fact, if the size here is not even as big as the Milky Way, then this is the outside world, the Milky Way. It should be called inside. Some things are terrifying to think about, and Jia Yan is like this. The more he thinks about such things, the more he feels extremely shocked. Anyway, with his current strength, he simply couldn't think about this kind of thing, so he simply didn't think about it. Sir, if you don't think about how to deal with the controller, you will definitely be unlucky in the future. If we help you, we will probably be unlucky together, so you have to think carefully about how to deal with the controller if he comes to you. Among the beetle creatures, the one who seemed to be the leader was very kind to Jia Yan. They were forced to stay with Jia Yan, and they were asked to help Jia Yan control millions of miles around. This is simply a fantasy. Millions of miles around, wouldn't it mean that he has completely offended the controller? Even the territory he controls must be completely annexed. This can be described as a never-ending matter. Of course, it's not much different now. The Kangwoo killed by Jia Yan was actually the person who was vaguely protected by the controller. His ancestors had some friendship with the controller, so around here, although Kangwoo's strength not powerful, but no other creature dared to cause trouble in his territory. This group of beetle creatures dared to cause trouble because they actually had some relationship with the controller. But this new land grabber, after killing Kangwoo, not only did he not go to see the controller, but he even prepared to start a sword fight. This made all the beetle creatures smile bitterly in their hearts. This guy doesn't know how powerful the controller is at all. He thinks that with his strength, he can deal with the controller. According to his mid-level strength, compared with the strength of the controller in the late stage, he will definitely be defeated. Instant kill. Several beetle creatures were controlled by Jia Yan in an area. Jia Yan slowly asked them about their knowledge. Although they answered fluently and were more wary of Jia Yan, in fact, they still revealed their biggest shortcoming. That's why this group of beetle creatures actually care about each other's family members very highly. Oh, Jia, you go out and explore for the news. If the controller comes to our side, just send me the news. Jia Yan directly assigned two of the beetles to assign tasks. If you two dare to make any mistakes during the mission, or have any evil intentions, I will directly kill these relatives of yours. Jia Yan's faint voice made a group of beetle creatures feel their hearts tighten. As expected, this guy saw through their weakness of attaching importance to their family. These beetle creatures attach great importance to each other. It is unclear whether this is an advantage or a disadvantage. In short, they pay too much attention to each other. At this moment, Jia Yan directly grasped this point, and then they made threats. Under such circumstances, they had no choice but to obey orders. As for Jia, who is the strongest and largest among the several beetle creatures, and is also the consul general among the several beetle creatures, his expression suddenly changed wildly after hearing Jia Yan's words. Even in the bottom of his heart, the thought of taking action flashed across his mind. But Jia Yan's calmness and his vague disdain towards them made him feel that the guy who called himself Jia Yan should have hidden strength. Only if this was true, would he be here? At this moment, he was still so calm. This group of beetle creatures is actually a nest of little beetles that were abandoned by their parents. In this city, some young beetles with wisdom but no powerful means must have gone through ups and downs if they wanted to survive until now, and they also helped each other to get to where they are now, so the relationship between them is very good. But now Jia Yan uses two of them as hostages. In addition to being honest and obedient, the only thing left is that one of them can fight to the death. But unfortunately, so many years of wind and rain have made them very sensitive to danger. They clearly realized that they would definitely die in a battle with Jia Yan, so they wisely chose the first point, to be honest and obedient. The boss of beetle life and the second most powerful guy both went to find out the news. On Jia Yan's side, he was silently chatting with the two beetle creatures who were left as hostages. The two beetle creatures left behind seemed to be very young, so he could ask questions without restraint that might make others doubt Jia Yan's identity, but he would not be afraid of being frightened by the two. The bad beetle boy saw that he was not from this world. Through the words of these two beetle children, he silently learned more about the world. And just when the two powerful beetle creatures, the eldest and the second, were heading towards the outside world, in this land with a radius of millions of kilometers, there was a small biological building built in the corner of a certain giant's yard. Inside, several creatures that were several kilometers in size were discussing urgent information in this building. What kind of outsider actually killed Kangwoo in the first place? You must know that Kangwoo's strength is not extremely weak to us, but he was actually able to kill Kangwoo in one fell swoop. The strength of this outsider cannot be underestimated. I'm afraid of what he might do. This kid hasn't come over to greet the master and explain why he killed him. The master probably won't let him go. When the time comes, his territory might even be divided among us. Yes, even the controller doesn't know how to come to see him. It's so rude. If possible, I really want to see this guy with my own eyes to see how bold he is to do such a heinous thing. Each of these creatures has hidden strength, and they all look very powerful. At a glance, you can tell that they have great status and strength. That's right, because they are the lords of large territories who are the strongest and occupy the most territory within a radius of 1 million kilometers. The creature that came last night actually killed Kang Wu, who occupied the same territory as them. This was like a wake-up call to their group of territorial lords. There was actually an alien creature that wanted to seize the territory. This pair in this group, for them who have lived in prosperous places for a long time, it is already a very far away thing. Because they were powerful and had been in high positions for a long time, these creatures were very afraid of death. After knowing that the guy was actually stronger than Kang Wu, they hurriedly came to this building place and asked the other party. A more powerful existence came to seek advice, or in other words, help. It's not tiring for you guys to chirp in my room. I'm tired of hearing it. Shut up. Suddenly, a voice that seemed to be joking, but without any hint of joking in its voice, appeared within the auditory senses of this group of creatures. Along with this voice, a shadow slowly stepped out from the depths of the building. This building was built outside the house here. This shows that the giants around them all agree with this. This is absolutely unimaginable. Giants will definitely not be such easy to talk beings, but they all agreed, which shows the terrifying methods of the owner of this house, or the terrifying power behind him. Of course, a direct war with a giant is definitely not possible. At least in this city, there is no force that rivals the giant. It is just a small biological force. It's just an exchange of interests with the giant city. And the existence that appeared was a member of this force. He has been assigned to this remote place for a long time, so the people around him have already regarded him as one of their own. Even Kang Wu, his ancestor, was uniquely regarded because of his relationship with this existence. Take care of. This creature's title is very simple and very domineering. Because he is the controller, it is the one with the most noble and powerful strength and status in this million-mile radius. Master Controller. Your old man has finally come out. Sir, please help us. An outsider is here. Kang Wu, whom you value most, has been killed. He looks like he wants to annex our area. Sir, please kill him quickly. Each and every landlord creature praised the controller as much as possible, and then asked him to take action immediately to kill the outsiders who dared to come to this area. I know everything you said. The controller is a creature that looks like a moth. There are wisps of light flashing in his eyes, which seems to have a certain relationship with his strength. And because of this light, his expression was a little weird and scary. You are right. My intelligence system has sent back the news that this outsider actually wants to annex our territory. He is an ignorant young man who doesn't know where he came from. Okay, you don't have to urgent, Go and deal with him now and let him know that in addition to strength, you must also understand the rules when walking in the city. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1503. As for the controller who wants to come to annihilate Jia Yan doesn't know the news yet, but he knows very well that the other party will not just let him, an outsider, treat the creatures in their territory to hunt and occupy. So I will definitely come and deal with him. But Jia Yan didn't sit back and wait. As the night passed, Jia Yan did not make any moves, but was chatting with those beetle creatures about the basic issues of the world. Then, during the day of the next day, he received a reply from those A-1 A-2. Their replies were exactly what Jia Yan wanted to know. The leaders of the surrounding territories are different from the territory of Kangguyu occupied by Jia Yan. They all have their own subordinates, or they have some behavior towards others, so they still have a lot of manpower, so these beetle creatures, relying on being much stronger than other ordinary creatures, they can easily get the information they want from these creatures. Sir, the controller actually wants to attack you. I think you should be more careful, and we are probably regarded as your helpers by them. Should we move to other areas, or should we just withdraw from this group? Forget about 10 areas, if we go further afield, our news won't spread that far. A pair of people advised Jia Yan. You must know that they understand very well that as controllers, they have unique channels to transmit messages. Since they are in this area and are wanted by the controller of this area, then they will be wanted by other controllers in the surrounding area, but this is not possible for those farther away, because delivering such news requires more energy and time the farther away they are. They are little people, Xiangxin does not have the qualifications. But his idea was to retreat on the spot. And he thinks this is what Jia Yan is thinking, because provoking the controller means that the game is over, and he will definitely die if he doesn't leave. No, we won't leave. If the one in control comes, then I will destroy him. Jia Yan went beyond Jia Yi's expectation and said something that he couldn't believe. Sir, you can't do this. If you don't want to leave, you can kneel down and beg for mercy from the controller. Otherwise, you will definitely die, and we will also be killed by you. The pair of A and Jia almost lost their minds after hearing Jia Yan's words. Jia Yan is not willing to leave, but they want to leave, but if Jia Yan doesn't leave, he will never let these brothers leave. Now they have long been regarded by others as being with Jia Yan, so they are sure not to leave. It's a dead end. Of course they will not have any loyal thoughts towards Jia Yan, but now they are chasing ducks. They have two of the brothers controlled by Jia Yan. If the other two don't help, Jia Long will definitely kill their brothers. Killing, this is unacceptable to them, but if they stay here and fight to the death with Jia Yan, they will definitely have only one fate, so at this moment, they are completely confused. Oh? If you want me to kneel down, can I get the original coolness of the controller? Ha ha ha. When Jia Yan heard this, he couldn't help laughing. He almost laughed so much that the beetle creatures around him thought this guy was crazy. However, Jia Yan's heart was not crazy, but at this moment, he already knew that he always vaguely felt that the creatures in this world, even if they were powerful, always had some weird disadvantages. Before this he never figured out what this disadvantage was. But now he finally knows that they don't have the arrogance of being a strong person. In other words, there is no arrogance in a strong man of Jia Yan's level. But for Jia Yan, even if he died, he would not easily say such words as kneel down. Because although he is relatively weak here, in the galaxy, he is an absolutely powerful man who dominates the world. He is an evolved beast that makes other races panic when they hear his name. And here, although there is a certain gap in strength between him, there is not much difference between the strong men. He often says such words as kneeling down and begging for mercy. Why can't Jia Yan laugh? Perhaps it is almost impossible for such a strong person to go further. The heart of a strong person is gone. At this moment, Jia Yan suddenly realized this. Then he ignored Ji Yi, because no matter what he said, he would not leave, and he had to deal with the person in charge. If you two are willing to leave, then you can go. But if you leave, I will kill your brother directly. You can see for yourself how to do it. Jia Yan said this to the two beetle creatures. You are a devil. The demeanor of the two beetle creatures suddenly changed. They were actually afraid that Jia Yan would let them make this choice. If Jia Yan made it for them, no matter what it was, their psychology would be less stressful. But things are different now. Jia Yan lets them make their own decisions. No matter which side they choose, What should they do? Big brother and second brother, you can go on your own. We will be fine. Even if we die, we won't blame you. Unexpectedly, the two beetle creatures that were being watched by Jia Yan at this moment both spoke at this moment. And their opening was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't choose either, I choose to fight with you. The beetle boss launched an attack on Jia Yan. Jia on the other side also launched his strongest attack on Jia Yan. Perhaps due to the joint efforts of the brothers, the two beetles controlled by Jia Yan next to him also launched an attack at this moment. Haha, it seems that you really think that you can handle my strength by working together. Jia Yan smiled. Just as a group of beetle creatures were attacking Jia Yan's expression turned cold. The strength that had been rising all the way in this world was suddenly revealed like a volcano erupting. For Jia Yan, the strength he has improved in this world is actually a lot. Even the last time he fought with Na Kangwu, he had not fully displayed it. Now these four beetle creatures were attacking him. Jia Yan felt that they had some strength, so he showed some strength. Puff. When Jia Yi's attack reached him, Jia Yan's whole person seemed to suddenly turn into a ball of air and disappear into the normal space. What? What kind of trick is this? Na was shocked. You must know that in this world, it is difficult to see a subdimensional talent. Jia Yi's giant beetle claws hit the air hard, but missed the target. On the other side, the attack of a 2 will be slower than that of a 1. After all, there is a gap in strength. His attack had not yet been fully launched, but he felt that the space around him seemed to be cut open by a knife, and a sharp front foot, like a scalpel, slashed directly down. Jia Yan's attacks have never been so sharp, nor have they been so tenacious. After mastering something like Tao, his attacks contained a hint of yin and yang power. Even if this power was evolved because of the Tao of this world, at this moment, Jia Yan was he felt that this yin and yang power, combined with his understanding of the antimatter power in his body, should be unique in this world. After all, the unique antimatter substances in his body appeared very accidentally and even required many objective conditions, such as Jia Yan's evolved beast body, the combat situations during promotion, and a series of external factors. Only in this way can Jia Yan's body contain antimatter. Without this substance, it is impossible to study the yin and yang Tao, so Jia Yan still has doubts about whether there will be a comprehender of the yin and yang Tao like him in this world. And this attack, when it came out, had a hint of the artistic conception of yin-yang Dao. Puff. Jia was still dreaming about the feeling of hitting Jia Yan, but the Keela he stretched out was cut off by Jia Yan's slash without even giving him time to react. Snapped. The broken Keela flew up, and Koji instantly felt severe pain and couldn't help but scream. A pile of monster blood was completely ejected at this moment. Koji. Jia Yi was surprised to find that his attack did not hit Jia Yan, but in the blink of an eye, Jia Yan, who was in front of him just now, actually appeared next to Jia who was following him, and with one blow then, he cut off Jia's claws directly. Looking at Jia Yan's other foot, it was already raised high. In just a moment, it could kill Jia, who had no power to counterattack or defend, with one blow. Stop. We won't fight back against you anymore. I choose the second option and fight side by side with you. You have a lot of them, so stop it. I instantly understood that the gap in strength between creatures like himself and Jia Yan was so great that he could not even imagine it. And at this moment, he suddenly felt that Jia Yan wanted to deal with the controller. It seemed that there was a slight possibility. Of course, the possibility was still not high. The two beetle creatures charging from the side also changed their expressions after seeing the scene of the rabbit rising and the falcon falling in front of them, and then they had a profound understanding of Jia Yan's strength and the extent of what he could do. A shouted to stop one by one, and they also did not dare to attack. Because they knew that in the face of Jia Yan's overwhelming strength, even if they attacked, or even used the blind spot that Jia Yan didn't pay attention to, they would definitely not be able to hit him at such a fast speed. They were about to face Jia Yan's counterattack. Oh? Have you chosen to fight me? Very good. Then just be obedient. Jia Yan gave up and continued to attack the second child. After all, he still wanted a few helpers, because in his opinion, the strength of these beetles still had some merit. Maybe Jia Yan, who had just arrived in this world, Yan can't beat Ji. After all, at that time, he had not yet mastered the Tao, so he did not have the strongest means such as subspace talent, so his strength would definitely be greatly reduced. After subduing these beetle creatures, Jia Yan finally had a few decent subordinates. And after he stabilized the hearts of the people on his side a little, finally, the so-called controller had led several extremely powerful leaders from various regions to arrive here. Jia Yan just recovered 4 beetle creatures and asked them to arrange them behind him, while Jia Yan stood at the front of the grass and saw the creature exuding a huge aura slowly rising from the haystack 10,000 kilometers away. Step out slowly. In fact, this feeling is also very strange, because this is a yard that is 10,000 kilometers wide. If it were Jia Yan who was weak before, let alone feel the aura of a strong man 10,000 kilometers away, even if he were to, it is very difficult to see something 10,000 kilometers away. The creatures arranged in a straight line are like a small army. Yeah, there are bugs about to fight. Jia Yan just wanted to set up a formation to deal with the coming creatures. But at this moment, there was an innocent, but thunderous sound, ringing in my ears. It turned out to be the little boy from the giant family who came to the city with him. At this moment, he screamed in surprise. This kid. He also likes to watch bugs fight. Don't get too close, or they won't fight. From a distance, the woman from the giant clan seemed helpless that her son still liked to watch bugs fight. On Jia Yan's side, he could feel the child's tall body thousands of kilometers away, gently lowering his head and watching their movements. And he was keenly aware that the enemy creatures over there seemed to be in panic. At this moment, Jia Yan's eyes flashed. Kill me! He suddenly shouted. The 4 beetle creatures around him looked shocked for a moment, but the arrangements and words Jia Yan made for them before the battle forced them to take action at this moment. The 2 sides are separated by 10,000 kilometers, but for a strong person of this strength, they are still extremely close. At this moment, Jia Yan's body turned into nothingness and entered the subspace. The 4 beetles charged towards the opponent's location very quickly, because they knew that the boss they had just recognized seemed to be extremely fast after using that magical power. Wow, this bug is so powerful, it will disappear. The eyes of the child above him almost lit up. Child, be careful of bugs flying into your eyes. These little things like to rush into people's eyes. The female voice in the distance was very helpless at the child's behavior. The conversation between this family does not affect the war here at all. Seeing Jia Yan's side, even after seeing that the giants were paying attention to their fight and still refused to stop, the expressions of all the more than 20 insect creatures that had just appeared over there were condensed. The reason why I say this book is expensive is because now I only read a chapter of 4,000 words. If someone writes a chapter of 2,000 words, of course I pay twice as much as he does, but I can't put a price on it. Please come to cheateon.com to subscribe to the official version. Thank you.